People who really study Washington recognize that he had a rare trait, rare then, rare today, and that was vision and the ability to see what could be done and to embrace change.
Washington's passion is farming. Most of his Mount Vernon acreage, like that of his neighbors, is planted with tobacco. Tobacco can be lucrative, but it is highly regulated by the British, so profits vary wildly. It is also difficult to grow in the fragile Virginia soil.
So he wasn't worried about the prestige of being a tobacco farmer. He was interested in making his plantation pay for itself. It was a business, and Washington just decided there's got to be a better way.
Starting in 1766, Washington abandons tobacco as his main cash crop, one of the first Tidewater plantation owners to do so. He replaces it with crops like corn, wheat, and flax, domestic crops for domestic consumption.
That's when he became really wealthy, when he started doing that rather than serving the British need to import tobacco, which was a loser in America at that time.
You've got to constantly be innovating. You've got to constantly ask yourself, isn't there a better way to do this?
For George Washington, the farm at Mount Vernon is a work in progress. He never stopped searching for improvements, whether borrowed or self-generated. He designs a better plow, one that won't get stuck in the farm's clay soil. He builds a threshing barn that revolutionizes wheat production. And when a patent application for an automated grist mill comes across his presidential desk, he not only approves it, but immediately orders one for Mount Vernon.
In some ways, George Washington was the Steve Jobs of his time. It was not technology for technology's sake. It was technology in service of human advancement.
In the last years of his life, Washington decides to add a distillery to Mount Vernon's growing list of business ventures. It quickly becomes the biggest and most profitable whiskey distillery in America.
One of the reasons I think George Washington created a distillery was classic business principle, which is take something and add value to it. He had grain there at Mount Vernon. Now, grain is heavy, difficult to transport, subject to spoilage. But if you take that grain and change it into whiskey, you've got something much more compact. The nutrition is much denser, it doesn't spoil, it's easy to transport. And those two things enabled him to make higher value-added product.
Washington was a visionary. He spent years of his life fighting for ideas that he had. But he was also a supremely practical man. He got his hands dirty whenever it was necessary. That's the most inspiring thing about him to me.